guys, what's up? I'm Captain Mike. I'm going to be your instructor for today. Welcome to Florida Sport Fishing TV Plus. Our goal here is to provide you with just a lot of great content, really help you become a more successful angler and eliminate empty fish boxes forever. There's a lot of topics that we talk about here, a lot of species-related topics, rigging topics, but something that we haven't really touched a lot on yet is gaffing, really just sticking it to a fish here, the end game. And this is something that is really important. There's a lot to gaffing, and I've had a few inquiries lately that have prompted me to share this information. So let's get right into it here. Gaffing can be intimidating. It really can, especially if you're inexperienced. Most people are terrified of touching that gaff. On the other hand, it really should be the culmination of all of your efforts and hard work is actually gaffing that quality fish and putting them in the boat. But it's not that simple. It really isn't. First, let's talk about gaffs themselves. And keep in mind, we're really talking about the offshore scene. You're not going to gaff much inshore. Even on the reef, a net is certainly the better option because there's a lot of fish that are going to be short that you may be releasing. Maybe they're out of season. So a net would be the way to go. But offshore, wahoo, kingfish, dolphin, tuna, etc., it's all about gaffing. First is the hook size, right? Keep in mind, this is like a 3.5 inch hook. It's really, really big. Take a look at that hook right there. Okay, it's a really, really large hook. It's a great gaff for something like tuna fish that are really, really wide. Maybe even a big dolphin, it's a great gaff. You get a lot of bite on that fish with that big hook. But for something like a king mackerel or even a smaller wahoo, it's just too big of a gaff. It really is. You may actually miss that fish and it may just kind of get, wedged in between, or I don't want to say wedged, but you may just miss that fish. So hook size is real important. I found here, South Florida, really all around the state, a 2-inch gaff is ideal, a 2-inch hook size. I also carry a 3-inch hook size. So I have one of each on the boat at all times, but if you can only have one, that 2-inch hook size is going to be ideal for the vast majority of cases. Next is the length. May it be 6 foot, 7 foot, 9 foot, whatever it may be. There are different applications. Obviously, the gaff has to be long enough to reach over the side and into the water. Professional king mackerel fishermen use really long gaffs, sometimes over 10 feet, just so they could really reach out there and stick that mackerel, because they know that big kingfish, once it gets right up next to the boat, it's really prone to taking another long run. They may end up losing the fish because it gets spooked by the boat. So they like those really long gaffs to reach out and grab those fish. In most situations, in most center consoles, a 7-8 foot gaff is certainly plenty. There are some gaffs that extend. I'm not a big fan of those because of the lack of strength. Just for the sake of display purposes, I'm using an AFCO here, only because my ceiling is relatively low. However, out on the boat, I use custom Merida gaffs that are built on Calcutta, on bamboo poles. Those are my favorite. They look great. They're super strong, nice to work with, and I'll tell you what, fully customizable as well. Nevertheless, regardless of what you choose, like I said, length is important. Make sure it's adequate enough to reach out there and grab that fish. Next, always have hook awareness. What do I mean by that? The point of the hook. How many times have you seen somebody grab a gaff and they're just swinging wildly and they're missing that fish? That's because the hook isn't even in the right position. They're not even paying attention to where that gaff hook is actually pointing. Always out and down. Okay, always out and down. It's that simple. It's pointed straight down in that 6 o'clock position, okay, and it's out away from me in that down 6 o'clock position. Why? Because the vast majority of the time, I'm reaching over a fish and I'm sweeping in, okay? I'm not sweeping up and potentially pushing that fish up and, out of the surface, so to speak, and away from the gaff. I'm sweeping over the fish, down and in toward the boat. So I'm pulling in, sweeping in, real important. So first, grab that gaff. Get a good firm grip on the gaff, whoever is, gaffing that fish. Pay close attention to where that hook is. Again, for display purposes, this is a nice big hook. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. And it's going to be down like this in that 6 o'clock position. and out, ready for me to swing over top of the fish and to sweep in. Once I hit that fish with the shaft, with the pole of the gaff, all I have to do is pull up because the fish is right here. He's leaning right up against the pole. You know, it's almost a no-brainer. You can't miss, okay? So over and in, okay? Sweep in toward the boat. Never sweep out. Never push that fish out away from the boat. Headshots, a big conversation. Everybody's like, go for the head, go for the head. You know what? On a big fish, a swordfish, a tuna, getting a nice clean headshot oftentimes is easy, but sometimes it's not so easy on some of the smaller fish or longer, more slender fish, maybe a wahoo, whose head is not proportionately, you know, giant compared to its body, like a tuna would be per se. So in turn, what I say is, listen, of course, if you can get that headshot and not damage any of the meat, of course, that's what you want to do, right? That's ideal. However, go for whatever shot you can. I'd rather have a wahoo or a dolphin or whatever smoker kingfish in the boat with a little bit of damaged meat along its side somewhere than not have that fish in the boat at all. So, you know, oftentimes, you know, like I said, the one shot you get may be the only shot you get, so take it. Once you gaff that fish, again, a nice firm hold on that gaff. Do not, you know, so many people have made the mistake, do not lift up like this and try and, you know, lift the fish up. First of all, remember, we sweep in and up, so we've got the fish impaled on the gaff. If we lift the gaff up like this, he's going to slide right off the hook. The fish is going to come right off and right back into the water, okay? So in turn, we want to sweep in, stick that fish, and then put the gaff in a vertical position, straight up and down, and lift up, hand over hand, okay? That is the proper procedure. Sweep in, stick the fish, put the gaff in a vertical position, and carefully lift up and into the boat. Okay, up and into the boat. And when you get that fish off the gaff in the boat, the same thing. Don't start swinging this wildly. You've got a 6 to 8 foot pole with a sharp hook on the end, easy to hurt somebody. Instead, I've swept out, I've gaffed that fish, I'm sweeping them in toward the boat. Gaff goes in a vertical position, the fish is still outside the boat. I'm lifting it up, hand, over the rail, onto the deck. I dislodge the hook, and again, straight up, vertical, over the rail, and now swing the gaff hook out and back into a rod holder. The hook is always outside the boat. Real safe, real simple. That's the whole procedure. I know it can get real hectic and real exciting when you've got a big quality fish next to the boat, but the most important thing I can tell you is slow down. Just slow down, take a deep breath. You've hooked that fish, you've got him all the way to the boat. If you do the end game properly, he's yours, okay? So just slow it down, relax, out, in, up, and over the rail, okay, or over the gunnel. Be careful not to wrap the line around the gaff. We've all done that, right? I mean, for sure, you go to gaff a dolphin or a big quality fish, you miss it, whatever happens, and sometimes the line wraps around the gaff. If that happens, don't freak out. The angler should back off on the drag immediately, and then maybe you can just untangle it real quick, but that's the rarity. Out, in, up, over the gunnel, okay? And then again, dislodge that fish, lift that gaff straight up vertically, swing the hook out, and boom, back in the boat. That's the proper way to end the game.